In the United States alone, adults over 65 account for 34% of all prescription drug spending, despite being only 16% of the population. The average senior fills more than 24 prescriptions per year. And yet rates of chronic disease, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, cognitive decline continue to rise in this same age group every single year. The drugs are not failing because medicine is bad. They are falling short because most of them treat symptoms. They do not address the underlying biology that is driving the disease in the first place. There is a growing movement in medicine, backed by hundreds of clinical trials and endorsed by leading physicians around the world, called lifestyle medicine. And it is producing results that many medications simply cannot match. Today I am going to give you the complete, doctor-approved blueprint for using lifestyle as medicine. By the end of this video, you will have a clear, practical, step-by-step plan to begin treating the root cause of chronic disease, not just managing the symptoms. To understand why lifestyle medicine is so powerful, you need to understand what is actually going wrong inside your body after 60. The answer comes down to a process called epigenetic drift. Now that sounds complicated, but the concept is beautifully simple. Think of your DNA as a piano. The notes on that piano, your actual genetic code, do not change. But who is playing the piano and how they play it changes constantly. That player is called your epigenome. It is a layer of biological switches sitting on top of your DNA that turns certain genes on and off in response to your environment and your habits. When you are young, these switches are generally set in patterns that promote health. Anti-inflammatory genes are active, repair genes are working, protective proteins are being produced. But after 60 years of chronic stress, processed food, poor sleep, physical inactivity, and environmental toxins begin flipping these switches in the wrong direction. Genes that drive inflammation get turned on. Genes that suppress cancer and promote repair get turned off. This is called epigenetic drift. And it is the underlying mechanism behind most chronic diseases of aging. Here is the extraordinary news. Your epigenome is not permanent. It responds to new inputs. When you change your lifestyle consistently, when you give your body better food, better movement, better sleep, better stress management, these switches begin moving back toward health-promoting patterns. Your body starts expressing genes that repair, protect, and restore. This is the biological basis of lifestyle medicine, and it is fully supported by the research. Let me show you exactly what it looks like in practice. Before we get into the specific lifestyle interventions, I want to explain why they work so powerfully at the disease level, not just the symptom level. Conventional medications typically work through what is called a single target mechanism. A blood pressure drug blocks one type of receptor. A statin inhibits one enzyme. A pain reliever blocks one inflammatory pathway. This is precise, but it is also narrow. And it is why so many medications produce side effects. You block one pathway and you disrupt 5 others downstream. Lifestyle interventions work through what researchers call pleiotropic mechanisms. That means they work through multiple pathways simultaneously. Exercise, for example, reduces insulin resistance, lowers inflammatory cytokines, improves mitochondrial function, elevates mood neurotransmitters, strengthens bone density, improves cardiovascular efficiency, and activates cellular repair, all at the same time. No single drug does all of that. And exercise produces no adverse side effects. More than 2,000 randomized controlled trials have now compared lifestyle interventions against pharmaceutical treatments for various chronic conditions. Across blood pressure, blood sugar, depression, cognitive decline, chronic pain, and cardiovascular risk, lifestyle interventions consistently match or outperform drug treatments in the majority of these studies. That is the foundation. Now let me give you the blueprint, rank from effective to extraordinarily powerful. Intervention number 8, reducing sodium and increasing potassium. This sounds like simple nutrition advice. It is actually one of the most clinically validated dietary interventions in medicine. The average American consumes about 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. For adults over 60, the recommended limit is 1,500 milligrams. Meanwhile, most older adults consume far less potassium than their bodies need. This sodium-potassium imbalance is one of the primary drivers of hypertension in older adults. Potassium directly counteracts sodium's effect on blood vessel tension. It acts like a pressure release valve in your arterial walls. Increasing potassium intake through whole foods while reducing sodium has been shown in multiple trials to reduce systolic blood pressure by 8 to 12 points, comparable to the effect of a standard low-dose antihypertensive medication. Warning: people with kidney disease must be extremely careful with potassium intake. High potassium can be dangerous for compromised kidneys. Always consult your doctor before making significant dietary sodium or potassium changes if you have any kidney concerns. Practical tip: the best potassium sources are not bananas, contrary to popular belief. The highest sources are white beans, lentils, spinach, sweet potato, and avocado. Add one of these to your daily diet while reducing your use of added table salt. Score: 6 out of 10. Intervention number 7, anti-inflammatory eating pattern. Not a specific diet. An eating pattern. This distinction matters. Chronic inflammation is the common driver behind heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, depression, Alzheimer's disease, and most cancers. What you eat 3 times per day is either feeding that inflammation or fighting it. There is no neutral option. An anti-inflammatory eating pattern emphasizes colorful vegetables, fatty fish, olive oil, nuts, berries, legumes, and whole grains, while minimizing refined sugars, seed oils, processed meats, and ultra-processed packaged foods. A large-scale analysis of dietary studies found that people who follow an anti-inflammatory eating pattern for 6 months show reductions in CRP, a primary blood marker of inflammation, of up to 32%. They also show improvements in blood sugar regulation, blood pressure, cholesterol ratios, and cognitive test scores. Warning: the biggest mistake people make is trying to overhaul their entire diet in 1 week. This almost always fails. The most successful approach is crowding out, adding healthy foods first before removing unhealthy ones. Practical tip: add 1 additional serving of vegetables or berries to your diet each day this week. Do not remove anything yet. Just add. Once the healthy foods start taking up more space on your plate, the unhealthy ones naturally get crowded out. Score: 7 out of 10. Intervention number 6, nature exposure and green space. This one surprises many people, but the research is remarkably consistent. Spending time in natural environments, parks, gardens, forests, near water, produces measurable physiological changes. Cortisol levels drop, blood pressure decreases, heart rate variability improves, and heart rate variability is one of the best indicators of autonomic nervous system health and cardiovascular resilience. Japanese researchers have extensively studied a practice called Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, which simply means spending quiet time among trees. Studies involving older adults show that 2 hours of nature exposure per week reduces stress hormones by 16%, improves immune cell activity, lowers blood pressure comparably to a short walk on a treadmill, and significantly improves mood and sleep quality. Warning: the benefits require actual outdoor natural environments. Indoor plants provide minor benefits. Watching nature documentaries does not replicate the effect. The key is physical presence in a natural setting. Practical tip: identify the nearest green space to your home, a park, a garden, a tree-lined street. Commit to spending at least 30 minutes there twice per week. You do not need to exercise. Simply sit, walk slowly, or observe. The exposure itself is the medicine. Score: 7 out of 10. Intervention number 5, gut microbiome restoration. Your gut contains approximately 38 trillion microorganisms. This community of bacteria, viruses, and fungi is called your microbiome, and it controls far more of your health than most people realize. Your gut microbiome regulates your immune system. Approximately 70% of your immune tissue surrounds your digestive tract. It produces neurotransmitters including serotonin and dopamine. It regulates inflammation throughout the entire body. It influences blood sugar metabolism, cardiovascular risk, and even cognitive function through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. After 60, the diversity of the gut microbiome decreases significantly. This reduction in diversity is directly correlated with increased inflammatory markers, weakened immune response, higher rates of depression, and faster cognitive decline. Research shows that increasing dietary fiber from whole plants, particularly a variety of different vegetables, legumes, and fermented foods, measurably restores microbiome diversity within 8 weeks and produces corresponding improvements in inflammatory markers and immune function. Warning: probiotic supplements vary enormously in quality and strain specificity. Food-based restoration, through fiber and fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, or sauerkraut, is consistently more effective than generic probiotic capsules for long-term microbiome health. Practical tip: add 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to your breakfast daily. Add 1 serving of fermented food, plain yogurt, kefir, or sauerkraut, to your diet each day. These 2 additions alone begin shifting microbiome composition within 2 weeks. Score: 8 out of 10. Intervention number 4, purposeful social engagement. The medical community now classifies chronic loneliness as a public health crisis, and the biology behind it explains why. When humans feel chronically disconnected from others, the immune system interprets this as a threat signal. It activates a defensive inflammatory response, the same response your body would use to fight off infection. When this response becomes chronic, it produces the same destructive internal inflammation as poor diet and sedentary behavior. Research from Brigham Young University analyzed data from over 3 million people and found that social isolation increases the risk of early death by 26%, comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes per day. More strikingly, the research showed that the quality of social connection was a stronger predictor of longevity than exercise, diet, or even genetics. For older adults specifically, regular meaningful social engagement reduces rates of dementia, lowers blood pressure, improves immune function, and reduces depression and anxiety as effectively as pharmaceutical interventions, without side effects. Warning: social media use does not substitute for genuine human connection. Studies show passive social media consumption often increases feelings of isolation. Active, face-to-face, or voice-to-voice interaction is what produces the biological benefit. Practical tip: schedule 1 meaningful social interaction every single day. A phone call with someone you care about, a shared meal, a walk with a neighbor, a community group or class. Treat it like a medical appointment, because biologically it is. Score: 8 out of 10. Intervention number 3, resistance exercise as metabolic medicine. Muscle is the most underappreciated organ in the human body, and most older adults are losing it at a rate that directly threatens their metabolic health. After 60, without active resistance training, you lose 1 to 2% of your muscle mass per year. This is not just about strength. Muscle tissue is the primary site of blood sugar clearance in your body. Every pound of muscle you lose means your insulin sensitivity decreases, blood sugar becomes harder to control, fat accumulates more easily, and inflammation rises. Multiple clinical trials have now directly compared resistance training against pharmaceutical treatments for metabolic conditions. For type 2 diabetes, resistance training twice per week produces blood sugar reductions comparable to metformin. For depression, resistance training 3 times per week produces outcomes matching antidepressant medications. For blood pressure, consistent resistance training reduces systolic pressure by an average of 7 points. Warning: the word resistance does not mean heavy gym weights. Any exercise that places your muscles under load qualifies: bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, water bottles, chair-based movements. The progressive challenge, gradually increasing difficulty over time, is what drives the adaptation. Practical tip: begin with 3 exercises twice per week. Sit to stand from a chair 15 times, wall push-ups 15 times, and resistance band rows 15 times. After 2 weeks, increase each by 5 repetitions. This is your foundation. Built from here. Always talk to your doctor before beginning resistance training, especially with any cardiovascular or musculoskeletal conditions. Score: 9 out of 10. If this video gave you something valuable, please give it a like. It helps other people who need this information find it. Subscribe to this channel for more evidence-based health guidance built specifically for your stage of life. And please share this with someone you love who is managing chronic illness and deserves to know that more options exist. You have more power over your health than you have ever been told. Start using it today.